The worst loss yesterday was turned in by.
The worst loss yesterday. I don't think the Chiefs losing to the Bills was a bad loss per se, but I think that this is sort of reason for concern now. They've lost 3 of 5, and some of the pieces that they've brought in aren't coming together the way that maybe they'd hoped it had. They're older on, in some positions, with guys like Tyrann Mathieu and Frank Clark are getting a little bit further on in years on defense, and then younger in other positions on defense with guys like Nick Bolton. And then they've got all these new guys on the offensive line. I wonder how it's going to come together. I wonder how long it's going to take to come together, because I think anybody who's paying attention to what the Chiefs did this offseason knew it might take a little while for all of that to come together. But I don't know if they expected that they would get their doors blown off by Buffalo in week 5. And so, I just think the process in Kansas City is taking a little bit longer. I don't know. There's not a particularly embarrassing loss.
I thought the Raiders losing to the Bears, and they had a good September. We were talking about Derek Carr, MVP, and now you lose to Justin Fields at home.
And let's not ignore the elephant on the couch there either. I mean, John Gruden going through, what he's gone through the last 3 days. And the fact that, I think that a lot of people across the league, not just people in the Raiders building, but people across the league were paying attention. How is that team going to respond to him now? Because something like this happens. And I think the honest question for everybody in that locker room is, well, if he put that in an email, what else is he saying? And I'm not calling John a liar. I don't know, whether or not, what he's saying is genuine, that, it wasn't a racial comment and he didn't mean it that way. But there are going to be guys in that locker room who are probably asking that question. So, yeah, I think it's the same way. I think we had to kind of watch not just whether or not Jacksonville won the game yesterday, but the effort and how much fight there was. I think it's fair to look at the same things with the Raiders on Sunday and kind of look at it and think, how are you going to come out of this? So, yeah, that's a disappointing loss for the Raiders. The Bears aren't a bad team, though. I think we've kind of gotten into this space where people think the Bears are a bad team, and they've been to the playoffs 2 times in the last 3 years. They're top 10 in the NFL in wins since 2018. So I don't think that's a bad team, but I do agree that I think coming off of what the team was coming off of with everything that happened with Gruden on Friday and sort of the fallout the last couple of days, it was important for them to play well, and they didn't play very well.
I'm just wondering, the NFL is going to investigate, but how far do you investigate? Because when you start to look at email, there's probably a lot of things in a lot of emails that if you start to go, how deep do you go and what do you want to find out? Because sometimes you may not want to find out certain things here. And I wonder if they suspend him, if the Raiders suspend him, how much, how heavy-handed is the NFL here?
Yeah, and I don't even know, I don't know, how you would go about looking through text messages. Can you look up text messages from 10 years ago?
Well, I don't think you can do text messages. They're available from what I'm told, but email, that's something different than, and Bruce Allen, who's on the receiving end of this, he didn't push back on, John, you shouldn't say that. It just starts to expand a little bit. It's not just John Gruden. And
it's, and honestly, Dan, it goes back to everything that's happened the last 4 or 5 years in the league, with Kaepernick in 2016, and then, the comments that Bob McNair made. I think with every one of these, the question is, if he feels comfortable saying it in setting X, what is he saying in setting Y and setting Z, And so, I think you're onto it, where you say, how much do they really want to know? Do they want to are they wanting to dig through John Gruden's text messages from 2011 and his emails from 2011? And then if they find something there, are they going through other interactions? It can wind up being a never ending thing. I will say this though, I think there were, because, and there's natural distrust between players in the league, right? That exists. It's always exists. It's just the way it is. I think that there were a fair number of players who looked at the way that the NFL handled everything in 2020 and liked it and thought, you're trying to do some good here. but still sort of wondered how much of this is just about the moment the country's in, and how much of this is just about, public relations and making sure that they're not creating a problem for themselves. And so, I do know that there are at least some players, even some coaches, even some executives that like looked at the league's effort in 2020 and said, well, let's just see what happens. Let's see how they handle, some of these situations in the future. And I think some of those people are definitely looking and saying, all right, like, let's see what they do with a prominent coach. And are they willing to come down on a prominent coach in a situation like this?